Action.
Hello and welcome to A Gypsy Kiss, the book club. I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby. Stick with us a couple of seconds, and we will talk about Chapter 8 in Forrest Fenn's Thrill of the Chase, entitled Surviving Myself. And you're back?
And we're back. So let's start off with housekeeping. And we want to thank our moderators today. Our moderators are Jimmy Fast, Man in the Barn, Joel Lewicki, Brian Eagle, and Jason Eunice. And we want to just give them a round of applause.
Man in the Barn's already in the house.
We're doing such a great job and keeping our chat positive and focused and helping to answer questions when we're unavailable to do so. So thank you so much for doing that, guys. Our presentation today will be from The Thrill of the Chase, Chapter 8, Surviving Myself, followed by
Open Q&A.
Open Q&A. So let's start off with anything related to the chapter and the book, and then we can move on from there.
Sounds good.
Okay. Are we ready to get started?
No, we have to drink wine first.
Oh,
so let me tell you. Let me tell you about our wine. Our wine is Velarde Riesling. The grapes are actually grown in Velarde, and we bought this at the Black Mesa Winery when we were coming back from our trip up north. The Black Mesa is in Velarde. It's one of the better wineries in the area. They have a broad variety of wines, and they're really good people. So we like stopping there. Is that our ting-ting?
That's our cheers.
That's our, and these are glasses that I got from them as a gift several years ago, and I still have them. They're very nice glasses. So
yeah, so when you go there and do a wine tasting, they include the glass.
Right.
Mm-hmm. To us.
To us, yeah, I guess.
To all of us.
To all of us.
Cheers.
Oh, it's sweet for a Riesling.
Yeah. I do love the Black Mesa wines.
They tend to be a little bit sweeter like that?
Just the Riesling, really. Most of their wines are more on the dry side. They do have a sister winery that makes the sweeter varieties. I think it's the San Juan wines. All right.
Okay. So let's take off here. So why don't you introduce the chapter, and we'll start.
All right. And again, today's chapter from The Thrill of the Chase, Chapter 8, Surviving Myself, is on pages 36 through 41. We have several pictures in there, including the one of Forrest Fenn there you see with his sister June. And, of course, he's pointing a little cat pistol towards the camera. It seems like he enjoyed playing with guns as a child, which I think of that era, most boys did play with guns. You did, right?
I would agree. Yeah, I feel like we all owned a BB gun at one time or the other.
I think I even had a cat pistol when I was a kid.
We had lots of pistols, lots of rifles. Somebody was talking about, there was a conversation a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, about going up to Denver and going to the Montgomery Ward warehouse store. We used to do that, and I always walked out of there with some sort of toy weapon. Because my dad would buy it for me. But I think of that generation, most of us had played with toy guns. As kids, as the next generation came up, they found so many other things to play with. But what was interesting is we played a lot of Army. And we'd take up sides, and the girls would play, we'd play the soldiers, and the girls would play nurses. And so it was always fun. My sister was a good nurse. Took care of me all the time.
Aww.
Every time I was wounded, like 3 times of battle. You know? So what did you think generally of this chapter?
Generally of the chapter, I thought it was, a nice little snippet of Forrest Fenn's life growing up and what it was like to live in a middle-class family in those times.
And that's what I would call it. I think sometimes he thinks of himself as not middle class, but it sounds very middle class to me.
Well, I consider when you have a father who has a degree and who is a teacher and a principal of a school, I think that would be leaning towards the white collar rather than the blue collars. So maybe they didn't have as much money because teachers are, notoriously underpaid.
Yeah.
But they would have that status of his father having that degree, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So I want to remind everybody that Shelley makes a comprehensive set of notes to go along with each one of these chapters. I add to them what little I can. She does a really great job with the analysis. And at the end of all of this, we're going to put them together in an ebook, and it'll make it downloadable. And you'll have that to refer to.
Brian Eagle, I didn't think you were that old to have candy cigarettes, but I remember them too.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I remember.
My brother and I, we would take the soda pop bottles, the glass ones, and we'd take them back to the Circle K to get our money. We'd get change from it, and our parents let us have that money to buy candy or whatever we wanted from the Circle K. So sometimes we'd get the candy cigarettes.
we didn't have Circle K's. We had Louis' Drugstore, where you bought everything from comic books to my mother's necessary supplies. I would be sent over, and he would wrap them in a brown plain wrapper and send me home again.
Yay.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get started.
All right.
We're on page 36, paragraph 3.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, the noon meal was called dinner, and we had meat only on Sunday after church. Dad usually killed the chicken, and Skippy and I would pluck the feathers, which was really hard. We experimented dipping the dead thing in scalding water first, and that helped a little, but the smell was terrible. Finally, we'd just grab a bunch of feathers and jerk as best as we could, which actually is the best way to defeather a chicken. Finally, we just Mom was world class at frying chicken, and my sister June always helped. We were a close family, and everyone but Mom and Dad pitched in with doing the dishes. And my brother Skippy, of course. He always had some more urgent calling elsewhere.
Did you get out of doing the dishes since you were the oldest?
No, I had to do the dishes because I was the oldest. And
my brother and I had to do them.
Yeah.
But there was just the two of us.
And then the next one was my sister Rita, who was our little queen and could do nothing wrong and didn't have to do anything except look adorable in those white little frilly dresses. And
oh, boy. All right, so Fenn recounts.
Wow, there was a little Freudian stuff in there, huh?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
You can see that resentment. Fenn recounts the chores the family performed together, which is a good history lesson for younger generations. He also has a way of making his portion of the chores seem bigger than the other children, once again, reclaiming the not fair attitude of the middle child.
But I'm going to ask you to be careful with this because it's all connected, so we shake the camera and they're going like, it looks like we're in an earthquake.
You keep saying that, but it didn't happen before.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have anything to add?
I did. So this is what was interesting to me about this chapter is Fenn does a really good job of establishing his relationship with the family members in the context of the family. So the comment, especially at the end of this the paragraph rather, and my brother Skippy, of course, my brother Skippy, he always had some urgent calling elsewhere. That urgent calling elsewhere through the remainder of his life eventually cost him his life because he was always doing something else, and that something else had to do with treasure hunting. And unless you're looking for a treasure somewhere in the mountains north of Santa Fe and you're spending a lot of time in the oceans, you're putting your life significantly at risk every day. And I think Fenn establishes that relationship with him. He wasn't serving 20 years in the Air Force. He wasn't building a gallery in Santa Fe. He was doing something else. But older children, man, it's hard to tie them down to any one thing. They want to be busy and they want to be doing their own thing and building their own lives. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Oh, my turn. Page 37, paragraph 4. My father gave me a Daisy air rifle for my 8th birthday, and I used to shoot it all the time. I even taped magazine pictures to the wall in my room and shot at people, usually guys who were wearing black hats. I pretended to be Hopalong Cassidy. I don't know how many people remember who Hopalong Cassidy was. And down to page 38, paragraph 1. On Saturdays, I'd go out behind our house to shoot meadowlarks for supper. Page 38, paragraph 2, since I brought the food home, I was higher on the food chain than my siblings. At least it was fun thinking that way. Page 38, paragraph 3, we always made a big deal out of taking a bite and saying, Mom, great strawberry shortcake. I can still remember how much my dessert tasted just like what I asked for, and in my fantasy way, it was.
So Fenn recalls a rich fantasy life that enhanced the time he spent at home with his family. And just the idea of Daisy air rifle and some of the other things, it made me think that he perhaps saw the movie A Christmas Story and related to that, and it influenced the way he wrote this. In his memories, he shares his sense of accomplishment, his pride in being a boy growing into a man who could protect and provide for his family. He also gives us a sensory taste of the special treats he fondly remembers his mother providing for the children.
You know, I'm going to switch this over to the full screen. We really don't need the slides at this point. What do you think?
Yeah. There we are.
Say hi.
Oh, hi again.
Again, this was an expression of his perceptions, and I always wonder if some of those perceptions he shared growing up, because there were certain elements of his life. He didn't like getting spanked any more than anybody else liked getting spanked. He didn't like getting admonished by his teacher any more than anybody else at that age would like getting admonished by their teacher. But in some cases, he gets away from that negative and finds a lot of positive in things. And I get a sense that Fenn struggled at some point with the yin and yang in his life, and worked hard to start moving away from the yang and towards the yin, towards the light. And I get a sense towards the end of his life, he did, except for those moments. I mean, you can't be raided by the FBI, for example, and not have a negative feeling about life. You can't find out that you've wasted a bunch of time on your search and not feel a little negative for a little while. But he strikes me as a man who has learned how to find the positive in things and not the negative. And I think it started right about this age. Page 40, paragraph 2. June never got switched because she probably did everything right. She was the family pet, being both female and the youngest and all. I remember one time I made her so mad she kicked at me as hard as she could. If there had been time to think, and I could have weighed the difference between being kicked by my little sister and getting switched by my father, I probably would have taken the switching again. Sometimes principle is reason enough to abandon logic, no matter how much it hurts. I found that statement interesting. Go ahead, give me your analysis.
Well, Fenn harbors some resentment toward his sister and women in general, as it seems she gets special treatment from his father. What other principles were important enough for Fenn to abandon logic? Perhaps hiding the treasure and walking away from it, because he had decided to do it and told everyone that he would. That principle of being a man of his word would prompt him to follow through and leave the treasure behind, no matter how much it hurt.
I agree. I think this is the single most important sentence when it comes to disproving someone's comment that this is a hoax, because what he tells us is that the logic of this situation would have said, "Don't do this. You're crazy." There's a dozen reasons. You could stand there and imagine a dozen reasons that you shouldn't leave this there, from everything from somebody's going to find it before you want them to, and before you have the, to it's going to waste away before he lives a long enough life to enjoy the fact that the treasure was hidden. So there's all these reasons, all these logical, rational reasons not to do what he just did. But principle says to him, you promised yourself. And this has been a significant part of your life now for the past 15, 20, 25 years. And you can't walk away from it now. You can't walk away from the principle now. You can walk away from the logic now. And I think it's a real good substantiation of his position on the matter of whether it's a hoax or not. And he always asks, when someone asks him, did you really hide a treasure? His response to that question, generally speaking, is, especially when he's on TV, he responds with, and I'm paraphrasing, what could I do to prove it to you? What is it that I could do other than show you I am a man of high principle? And I certainly have, as you're sitting there, of course, in his living room looking at all the things that he's acquired over his life. So you know he's acquired these things enough to have described it and photographed. And then, so what else could he do? Short of taking you to the, and he says, short of taking you to the treasure.
Right.
What else can I do? How can I prove to you I am a man of principles? So.
Right.
Page 41, paragraph 2. Sometimes when it wasn't too cold, I'd get even with my father for switching me by jumping out of the window by my bed and walking down to the cemetery, which was just a block north of our house. It took guts to go in there when it was dark with no moon. I still remember the sense of accomplishment I felt when I sat on some dead guy's grave marker. I wasn't even afraid. A kid really has time to think in a graveyard.
Well, this chapter is called Surviving Myself, and Fenn recalls the many times he was appreciated for being helpful as a child and switched for disobeying, defying, or upsetting his father. At one point, he refers to the spankings as motivational training. Although this style of upbringing was common and considered good parenting at that time, we can see that ultimately Forrest Fenn felt unfairly attacked when he says he'd get even with his father by walking to the cemetery at night. This reminds me again of the scene in A Christmas Story where Ralphie imagines that his family will be sorry that he went blind because he had soap put in his mouth. Do you remember that scene? And he's like, he's all mad because he had said a bad word, and he knew he said a bad word, he was going to get in trouble, and then his mom put soap in his mouth and made him sit there with it for 5 minutes. And then he could take it out, and then he was crying, and he was in his room, and he was upset, and then he was imagining all the terrible things that were going to happen, and how his parents would be sorry when he went blind because he had soap in his mouth. And I think we can all relate to that feeling as children, that we feel like we're put upon, we're misunderstood, and we're punished for things that we shouldn't be, and life is harsh. And I think it brings that back for us. What do you think?
I'm a big fan of testing yourself, and it's these little things in life that you do to test yourself. Going into a graveyard at night, jumping off a bridge as he does in Once Upon a While, walking across a suspension bridge. That doesn't seem rational at the time. So I think these are the things that a child would do all through not only his childhood but his more mature years, where he develops those various courages to do the things. To when somebody says, "Do you want to learn to fly a fighter aircraft, high-performance fighter aircraft?" You go like, "Sure, why not?"
Well, and his brother had flown it, so I'm sure at that point, he said, if Skippy can do it, I want to try it.
Right. And not only try it, but move from flying a, washing machine to flying a single engine winged aircraft to not that. That's not what he flew.
Right.
He flew a high performance jet fighter aircraft. And then after he was in the service, he bought himself a Piper Malibu, which is basically a high-performance personal aircraft. So he accomplished things in his own name, I think.
So what I got from this tells us that Fenn will resentfully remove himself from a place where he feels criticized or unappreciated, which means, maybe that's one of the reasons he pulls back sometimes. He felt a sense of accomplishment when he faced the dark graveyard alone, much the same as looking back on his life and feeling a sense of accomplishment as he thinks about his past and how he faces death alone. Do you want to read the questions to ponder?
Yeah, questions to ponder. When was he diagnosed with cancer? When he was diagnosed with cancer, did he feel unfairly punished? did he then transfer that feeling of they'll be sorry when I'm gone to leaving a treasure behind so that others would recognize that they missed him? Of all the places that Fenn could go, why did he choose the cemetery? Why are some of the places where a kid can go? Where? What are? What are some of the places where a kid go? I see what you're saying.
What are some of the other places?
Yeah. What are some of the other places where a kid can go to be alone and think? And could that indicate what special place he would want to hide his treasure and lay down with it to die? So, one of the things that we have always talked about is that we wondered whether or not the special place that he had found for himself. Obviously, we don't think it's a cemetery in the classic. I want to say white people's, but that's not. It's just not white people's way. The difference between the way we bury our dead and the way, say, the Native American tribes bury their dead in earlier times was we put everybody in the ground. The tribes didn't. They put them above the ground. They put them in the air, and they allowed them to decompose at their own pace rather than putting them in the ground with, something to help them decompose. So one of the things I always wondered about with the number of times he mentioned a cemetery and the number of times he mentioned his special place, I started to wonder whether or not the cemetery he was referring to as it could have been his special place, but not the traditional cemetery that we think of, but maybe perhaps, that's redundant, but perhaps the cemetery that a Native American might find amenable to them. So, what else you got?
I'm ready.
You ready?
Ready for... Ready for that.
Okay. So go ahead and take me to. Let's go to the chat and go to Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to pop this in here for just a second. Don't forget, if you'd like your question highlighted and sent to the top of the queue, you can use the super chat button down at the bottom of your window, and that includes iOS. iOS has this weird feature on iPhones where they make you pay 99 cents. I'm not sure why, $49.99 instead of 50, but not that you have to do 50. Any of your super chat donations are gratefully accepted. We really appreciate them, and we invest it in helping us to move this project forward. So let's go back to full screen and start with Q&A. Do you want to look at? So I'm going to leave us in full screen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make this transition here to close out the show.
Uh-huh.
Okay. But I'll go to full screen. We're full screen, and I'm going to give you chat up here, so you don't have to look down.
Okay.
Is that fair? So,
Whatever
but
you decide to do.
Okay.
All right.
So that's the top of your chat right there.
So good afternoon, everybody. Hello to Man in the Barn. Where's Bobby? That's a new name. Eric Schmidt, hi. Dr. Brown, hello from Fort Collins. Dave Erickson, hi. Kyle Lambert, it's been a while since we saw you, Kyle. And I guess it'll be another little while. Journeyman, hi. Dagmar did it, hello. Rick Plank, hello from Cincinnati. DeCall Thomas, hey. Ben Parisi, thanks, Toby.
You're welcome.
Paul Wood, howdy, everyone.
Ben wanted to get in touch with Illinois Ghost.
Oh, I see.
You're welcome, Ben.
Mm-hmm. Paul Wood, Eric Schmidt, sound effects. Somebody was requesting some the other day. Brian Eagles here. David Dow, good morning from Lake Tahoe. Virgil Kane from Iowa. JT from Texas. And yes, Dagmar, Cynthia does have an email. She lists it on her website, Chasing Fenn's Treasure.
ChasingFennsTreasure.com is her blog. And she also has a contacts page that you can click on and send her a message via the contacts page, which does go to her email, and then she'll start the email conversation with you.
That's right. Illinois Ghost is
here.
Hey,
Richard, nice to see you again so soon.
Yeah. Paul Ammons, hello, Paul. Thank you again for last night's contributions to Super Chat. And let's see. He's Texas Guns Up Texas Tech. All right.
Guns up, Texas Tech.
And did Shelley say Jean? I meant June. If I said sounded like June, it was June. Jean. I don't know what Jean is. June. Howdy B. Cross, also from Texas. Virgil Kane. William Ortiz is here. And on down.
Scroll down.
Okay, and Dr. Brown's provided the Chasing Fenn's Treasure link.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Oh, right, Dagmar, just go to the contacts page.
Yeah, there isn't an email on the page, Dagmar. You'll have to go to the contacts page, send her a message, and then she'll write back. Because that message goes to her email.
Paul Ammons is cleaning fish.
Nice. Trout?
Steve Smitherman, hello.
Oh, that's Paul Ammons from Drone Fishing, Paul Ammons.
Oh.
Is it? Little drone fishing there, Paul?
And we're having a reminiscence about Tonka trucks.
I remember when they were
Hello,
metal.
Amy Smith.
Doesn't everybody? Hi, Amy Smith.
Steve Gaghagen from the Husker State. John Polosic, Buenas tardes. You said that better than I do.
Buenas tardes.
And Journeyman had a Hopalong Cassidy spoon. B. Cross, curious what the average age of the searchers are in the room.
We can probably give you a hint to that because we can look at our YouTube channel by the number of subscribers, and our primary age group is 45 to 55.
Pineapples again, that's right.
Yeah, pineapples again. We noticed that, Brian.
Meadowlarks and shortcake does not.
Yeah,
compute.
oh my goodness.
Lori James. $100. Oh
Paul.
boy.
Yes.
Isn't that
excitement going on
two
here.
big donations in 2 days?
Is that Paul again?
Yeah.
Wow.
Paul.
Thank
Dang,
you.
brother.
Remember, this is to be fun, and I am. Do you think I am in Forrest Fenn's 7% club?
No, I think you're a little insane for giving us that much money, but I don't think you're in a 7% club.
But we appreciate
You're
it.
having too much fun. We do. So,
And everybody gave you applause.
yeah. Thank you. So that took us up. So I'm going to go back to
Yeah.
Lori's question about the. Well, it wasn't a question. Meadowlarks and shortcake does not compute. Yeah. I remember when I was younger, we'd go out camping, my brother and I, and we'd hunt with our BB guns for small birds to eat. And honestly, they're okay because you're hungry, but that's the only reason you want to eat a small bird and make it a regular part of your diet. They're just. No, John Shannon, Toby is the true polymath. John Shannon, I'm not sure I think of that, considering where that term comes from, I'm not sure it's a compliment. You're going to have to tell me if you think of that as a compliment.
Let's see. Dr. Brown, good point. And you went too far.
Good questions about Skippy. Oh, okay.
No, you went too far. There. Good point about A Christmas Story, Shelley. Many other film references apply. Da Vinci Code and Forrest Gump. Interesting.
Did Skippy drink and gamble instead of hanging around after dinner and wash dishes? You know, there's a what is that? A river runs through it kind of relationship. It strikes me. I think Skippy was more adventurous. You know, if you read,
He was probably out jumping off a bridge with his
yeah,
friends.
he really was very type A, adventurous. You know, trying out things. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Skippy was the one that was drinking, smoking, and gambling while everybody was at home, you know, saying their evening prayers or whatever they did. But
Hey, listen to the radio.
you know, Skippy was an interesting character. So
Did Skippy ever marry and have children, Lori James?
yes, he did. I don't remember the name of his wife, but Dale Neitzel tells the story of working on various oceanic treasure adventures with Skippy's son Clayton.
Creighton.
And
Creighton and Dale Neitzel also worked together at some point.
They worked for a while. So he did get married, but I don't know that I recall Fenn talking about any of any of Skippy's wife or children, other than mentioning them in a relatives kind of way. So, but I do know that Creighton and Dale. Creighton was his oldest son and took over in the diving business, the treasure diving business, and he and Dale worked together. That's how they got to know one another. As a matter of fact, it was Creighton that informed Dale about Fenn's treasure, and that's when Dale took an interest in it.
And Phil wants to know if Skippy sank the plane in Hebgen.
No, I think he managed to get out of there again. Didn't they truck it out? What was it?
I think, yeah,
They
you're
trucked
right.
it out.
They had to get it out.
He landed.
It was a seaplane, so it wouldn't have
Right. It had those floats on
pontoons.
it. The pontoons. And so he landed the plane, which is difficult enough to do on land, much less water. But they couldn't get it because of the altitude. They couldn't get it up in the air again, and so they eventually had to truck it out.
And we're getting more answers about Skippy, which we just covered. Get even with my dad, I believe, is approval in his own way.
Yeah, I think one of the struggles that Fenn had is it sounds like Marvin, his father, had a better, more masculine relationship. I don't mean as opposed to not masculine, but a father-son relationship with Skippy. And I think as a second child, you would grow into I don't want to use the word resentment, but you would work harder to have your father appreciate you.
Because the oldest is, when it's a boy, it's usually the alpha, as you were.
Yeah.
Whereas your younger brothers are not the alpha.
Right. They're not.
And so they have some resentment towards you.
Right.
And they expect you to be, the leader when dad's not around.
And that's what made it so interesting after my father passed away. And for a while I was there. I remember my mother telling me one time when after my father had passed away, where she said, "You're the daddy of the house now." And I was 11.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, could we talk about it?
Could you just bring in some uncles? Because we have those.
And don't run over my dog, please. But the point that I was trying to make is that that would likely mean Fenn would spend the later part of his life, his adult life, trying to get the same level of approval that Skippy, of his father's approval that Skippy had. And I think towards the end he might have acquired some of that. But you have to work at it. He had to work at it. Skippy didn't. Skippy was just Skippy, and the oldest child, and the relationship between he and his father would have been natural.
And he had a nickname, so
yeah.
How cool is that? Jeremy Milstead says hello. Dr. Brown asks, how important is it to read Too Far to Walk and Once Upon a While?
Important.
Well, we are going to do them after we finish this one,
so
important.
I would say they're important in the context of understanding Fenn. And when I first got into this chase, someone asked me my opinion on how you find the treasure. And I said, to find the treasure, you have to understand the poem of the book. And to understand the poem of the book, you have to understand the man. And so what Too Far to Walk and Once Upon a While did for me is provide additional research material on the man. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't believe there is anything in Too Far to Walk, or including the map, honestly, or Once Upon a While, that will get you closer to the treasure. But it will get you closer to more completely understanding Forrest Fenn. And nobody's going to find that treasure without having a good, comprehensive understanding of the man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, when he brought out Too Far to Walk, and you'll see the interviews that he did where he answers questions, everybody was still talking about his first book, The Thrill of the Chase. And I think in order to get more publicity and to sell more books, Too Far to Walk, he included that map and the poem and answered questions about the treasure hunt, specifically just to garner interest in that new book, not because it was going to help you find the treasure, because originally he only wrote the poem and the book in order to help you find the treasure?
You could go back to our Moby Dickens video, which I shot in November 2013, and it's funny because that book signing was not a Thrill of the Chase book signing. That was supposed to be a Too Far to Walk book signing. And as when we talk about our notes, there were about 45 people in that room. And when Fenn said, "How many of you know about my treasure?" about 10 or 12 people in the room raised their hands. So the majority of people were there to hear Fenn and him talk about Too Far to Walk, not about the Thrill of the Chase. And within, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes of beginning the conversation at the bookstore, it migrated over to the Thrill of the Chase, and it just continued for the next 45 minutes. So.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, Betsy watches. Does anyone know offhand if is this the only place in the book that has the word paddle other than the poem?
I don't know.
I don't know. It's a good point that he does talk about being paddled.
Do you want me to find out?
And that maybe that's a hint towards
Can you
the
keep
poem.
talking while I find out? I can find that out.
Hello to Fibonacci.
Hello and welcome.
And Illinois
I'm have
Ghost
a glass
says
of wine.
he always went to his treehouse rather than a cemetery to think. So that's a good indicator.
Oh, yeah. Tree houses are great. We love building tree houses. Go ahead. You're going to have to...
I'm trying to think of where I might have gone to go. I would just go to my room, because I had privacy in my room. Nobody would bother me if the door was closed. They, the most they would do was knock. So I always had that ability to go to my room.
And I think
I
think their room is kind of most girls' security place. Guys don't stay. I used to head up for the mountains.
Mm.
Okay, let's see. Yep. Who asked the question?
I have to come back. It was Betsy watches.
Betsy watches. The word paddle is used twice in the book, once in this chapter and once in the poem.
That's a good catch. Scaffold burial in the Black Hills.
I am going to scroll. Tell me when to stop.
Jimmy Fast. We all face death alone. Yes, we do. Oh, look, we got another super chat while we were looking the other direction. And that's from Dr. Brown. Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Does he have a question?
He didn't include one with it.
Okay.
But if you do, let us know.
Please. Let's see. You had
Push
Fibonacci. You said hello
Jimmy
to Fibonacci.
Fast to the top.
Jimmy Fast.
Yeah.
We will all
the top.
face
There you
death
go.
alone.
Mhm.
That is our assumption, Jimmy, that you can only do it by yourself. Oh man, Toby saying Fenn was going to die in a tree.
In a tree.
I don't know if I said that.
No. Paul Wood. It might be hidden in something that resembles a cemetery under something, and it scares everyone away, like the stuff I found the first time I sent you those pictures. What do you think? Well, it is no place for the meek, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Along with death and education, what does seem to be a very common theme, and it's really, that's just a comment.
Betsy watches. Interesting to me that Forrest Fenn mentions just a block north, then guts to go in there. Could in be an indication of north in the poem?
There's just, Betsy, that's one of those responses that anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Brown, am I the only one who wonders if the Fenns could have had chicken barn hogs and chickens? Billy mentions them. And I know they had goats, and I know they had a horse. So it is very likely on that property there was enough of a space to build a small farm-like structure in the back where you could have maintained chickens, hogs. He does mention they butchered their own hogs, so I think it is very possible that may have been true. Eric asks, do you see any being any hints in this chapter? And we were reading it again this morning, and there was something that struck my fancy then, that what does Ben say? Gets stuck in your little brain. Let me just...
Caught up in your brain.
Yeah, caught up in your brain. The one that got caught up in my brain that we didn't discuss was... Oh, it was a kid really has time to think when they're in a graveyard. That last sentence of the chapter. It was one of those. It was one of those aberrations. You know what? How does that? Why is that sentence there? So I'm not sure that it's a hint. There was nothing obvious to me in terms of hints in this particular chapter, and we know that there are not going to be hints in every chapter. He said there are a couple of hints in the book that are not placed, you know, to help the searcher. So we have learned not to force looking for the hints in every chapter. We think there are some in the book, and we think we've found some in earlier chapters, but we're not sure necessarily that there was one here.
Hello, B.J. Chambly and Wayne Peterson. And more cowbell. Oh, boy. Let me see if I can find more cowbell.
I'm scrolling down. Let me see. Dr. Brown, Amy said,
I gotta have more cowbell.
There's your more cowbell.
I gotta have more cowbell.
Amy Smith asks, Shelley, are you okay today? You seem like you need to cry.
Oh, no. I actually cried a lot yesterday. But it was because I was watching a sad TV show. No, it's just warm in here.
It is warm. I was thinking about getting a towel because I'm sweating in here. We turned the air conditioner off so that we could do this, and then we turn all these lights on, and it really gets warm in here. Let's see. AGK, how do you feel that slight landmarks like the cemetery being hints to the location of the chest? You know, it's there are probably dozens of those kinds of cited landmarks that you know, the mention of the horseshoe. Cimarron Canyon has a horseshoe mine. The mention of the green tea. There's a green mountain right above Cimarron, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the misspelling of the word dollars in when he was talking about his jars. There's a dollar mountain in an area that we were looking up east of Yellowstone. So you know, I think you can make some of those things work, but again, I think the idea is not to force it. I think it has to come in a more natural way, a more
Organic.
You know, organic. That's a good word for it. It has to come in a more organic way and not say, honestly, I ended up on the Cimarron because of the horseshoe mine. You know, you're looking for areas. You're looking at the map, and there's a little X on the map with the little pick and shovel thing, and it says horseshoe mine. Well, you go back to that. There's in one of the chapters where he talks about the dimensions of making a horseshoe, and so yeah, I think there's a lot of things in there. You know, we researched in one of our videos. We researched the word green and the number of times he used the word green, and he uses the word green more often than Yellowstone. Well, Green River, green this, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So. I think they have to be more organic than saying, oh, he's talking about horseshoes. That must mean the horseshoe mine in Cimarron. I don't think it's that
much of a
forced.
stretch.
Yeah.
I was wondering who took their animals when they went to Yellowstone in the summer, and they also talked about how his dad was a teacher and a principal, so why would they have farm animals? But I think at the time it was that scarcity mindset that, you know, you have a garden and you have your own chickens and you have your own cow, and it saves you the money of buying those food products. And Mom was home throughout the day, so she could be there for the animals. When they went away, I imagine they had a neighbor or a relative come take care of the animals. And you know, even my husband and I talked about borrowing somebody's chicken or chickens to put in our garden to eat the bugs, you know, and if we were taking care of the chickens, we would be getting the eggs as well. So it's sort of a nice trade-off that, you know, you take care of my animals and you can use, you know, their labor, their eggs, or what have you for the time that you have them.
Fibonacci says, AGK, what if this is Forrest Fenn's way of running away from home? I think in an earlier time, you didn't have to go as far as in later times to run away from home. My idea of running away from home was not down the block. I'd go up into the mountains above Santa Fe. I'd ride my bike and use the arroyos and go as far up into the mountains as I could. Now, this was when Santa Fe was smaller. The areas that I used to go up and camp by myself for a weekend when I was 9 or 10 are now fully developed, right? Overdeveloped in some cases. So I think that was his way of getting away from it. But it wouldn't surprise me to find out that, he took off by himself. I mean, he mentioned several times in The Thrill of the Chase about being in Yellowstone and looking for elbow room and, going fishing by himself and doing all these things. So, although I think the distinction is he seemed to have permission. It wasn't running away from home. It was just doing something someplace else other than home rather than running away.
Yeah. Especially boys back then was they were given a lot more freedom and we didn't have to worry about them running off and then getting killed or
no, I would come back from the weekend
or,
out in the mountains after having eaten 3 cans of beans and a small rabbit, and my mother would look at me and say, "Where have you been?" Like, whoa, I didn't even know you were gone. Let's see.
Where's Bobby? Oh, I think I said that
Bobby?
already.
Let's see. Illinois goes. AGK, when he says get even with his father, do you think he means doing something his father said not to do? I think that was, if you look at his relationship with his father, the way that he would think to get even with his father was by disappointing him, right? Because that was what he wanted more than anything else. What he wanted was his father's approval. And when he did things right, sometimes he would get his father's approval. But if he wanted to pay his father back for something, he would disappoint him. And that could be anything from, being thrown out of Miss Ford's class to selling the fish that he was supposed to bring home in Yellowstone. So I think, that was his, quote, getting even, unquote, with his father. Let's see. AGK, hi, Toby. What are your thoughts about the possibility that when the chest is found, it will be empty apart from the instructions to contact Fenn? I do not believe, Doug, I do not believe that's the case. I think when you find that, we believe, and we should always caveat our videos by saying these are our opinions. We have no evidence or proof of what I'm about to say, but we have to believe it. Otherwise, you have to then ask yourself why you're searching. So we believe that A, he hid the treasure. We believe that B, he hid the treasure somewhere in the mountains north of Santa Fe. And for some people, that's the entirety of the Rocky Mountains. And we believe that when you find the treasure, what's going to happen to you is what he says. You're going to open that box and you're going to be amazed at what you see. And so we have to believe that what you're going to see is all the things that he described he put in that box. I don't think there's any reason to do anything else because that's the solution to that particular problem that has the greatest longevity. If he has contact papers or titles that are hidden, that are opened in, lock boxes, and I just don't think that has longevity. Longevity is the treasure is there, it is hidden, and all the riches that he claims he put in that treasure chest are there as well.
We got some breaking news. There was a 5.3 earthquake in L.A.
Oh. Man, LA has got kind of a bad week.
That's according to our chat crew.
AGK from Dr. Brown, not to digress, but AGK, have you ever addressed Adard, Pat, and Kaser in that photo at Lanier? No, we have not. We've thought about it, but there wasn't enough there to cause us to research it further. Let's see. Dagmar did it. I'm a terrible fisher. I don't know anybody. That's no. You know what? You do enough of it. It's not hard to be a good fisher, depending on how you. Now I'm going through a phase where I'm teaching myself how to. I've always fly fished, and I'm teaching myself French nymphing, which I decided to learn just because it lets me say French nymphing a lot in conversation. But that's hard. And I'm terrible at it as of right now, but every time I go back up, I try it some more, and eventually I'll get better at it, getting the correct patterns down and the correct weights down and the correct leader down. Fly fishing is is a wonderful way to distract yourself, because it's like broadcasting on YouTube. You have to learn a whole bunch of new stuff. And every time somebody comes up with another idea, you know, French, they're bringing this European style of nymphing over to America. Who knew there was Polish nymphing, Czech nymphing, British nymphing, French nymphing, et cetera, all of which have different styles. But it turns out that these European fishermen were beating the heck out of our American brethren every time there was a fly fishing competition, because they were out fishing them using this style of fishing. And so all the Americans that were going to these competitions were bringing back this style and tying new patterns, nymphing patterns, and then choosing which of the styles they liked better for their particular area and catching fish. And it's a great way. I mean, it's a wonderful way to trout fish.
This is a long, lengthy story brought to you by Toby.
The lengthy Toby story. AGK from Virgil Kane is my name. AGK, would a scissor tail flycatcher be hard to shoot with a BB gun?
Before you answer that, I just want to say Dr. Brown said he forgot to attach a message to his super chat, but he just wanted to say, keep up the good work.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. We hope to, we plan to, and we really enjoy keeping up the good work. Yeah.
Now back to you.
AGK, besides the poem, that is the
scissor
only
tail
place with paddle.
Yeah. The scissor tail.
Yeah,
do you
yes.
think it would be hard to shoot with a BB gun? I don't know.
They're small birds. You'd have to hit them in the head, otherwise you're just going to damage the meat. But I don't remember any small bird meat worth eating other than in a stressful emergency situation. But that's my opinion. I suppose you could find a meadowlark tasty, but given a choice between a chicken and a meadowlark, I'll take the chicken. Let's see. Brian, eagle livestock were believable to me because they didn't need to. Okay. Virgil Kane. Yay, more cowbell. Paul and Shelley, I had to write a check to the IRS. Ouch. Oh. Well, yeah, what you need to do is just keep making those donations because, well, we're not a nonprofit. Never mind. Earthquake in LA, 3.1. AGK, do you think Forrest Fenn may tie the special place to his father and his father's approval? John, okay, caveat, this is my opinion. I believe that the place was special enough to Fenn that he may have taken his father to visit the special place and thereby came up with a line about don't go where a 79 or 80-year-old man couldn't go. Now, in 2017, Fenn started changing that to I was 79 or 80 when I hid the treasure, or I hid the treasure in 2009 or 2010. Prior to that, he used euphemisms for when and when in terms of time and how old he was when he hid the treasure. I don't know how long. I'm afraid it's going to fall off the table. My phone is buzzing over there. I think it was special to Fenn, not necessarily his father, but I believe that he shared the special location with his father. Oh, seriously.
So Jim Little, can we get Preston Douglas on the show? We would love that. So.
We asked him. We didn't get a response.
Sorry. We're trying.
Yeah, we tried.
We would love to. Dr. Brown, AGK, Rick last night told about his substantial expenses searching for the treasure. I sent you an email on whether one can use search costs as a tax deduction.
You can if you've incorporated yourself in a limited liability corporation, because you can't, as an individual, you don't have expenses. You'd have to have the equivalent of a business. You could file a Schedule C, but you would have to do them when the expenses are incurred. And to me, expenses incurred as a treasure hunter prior to actually finding any treasure is going to get you audited. You may survive it, but I'm willing to bet it would get you audited. We don't track our expenses. We just have fun.
We have lots of fun because Paul keeps giving us money to have fun with. Paul wants to know, Toby, have you ever fished in front of my cabin? The first one on the left below Los Pinos.
I've been on the Los Pinos. I don't remember the cabin, and I'm always hesitant. I'm very good with my BLM maps, and so I try to avoid the private areas on the river. I know there's a rule about you can't own the water, but I preferred not to fish around the private areas because I never know if on private property or not, and I would prefer not to incur the wrath of any private property owner. But I have spent time in Los Pinos. So here's what I need you to do. I'll go up there this summer at least once. So put a little sign on your cabin that says, "Hi, Toby."
So Gary Sandberg, is there any chance that the treasure chest is in a town or city rather than out in the mountains?
No. It doesn't make sense. Towns and cities are incorporated, and what isn't owned by the town or city is owned by an private individual. So there's no way for you to own the treasure if you discovered it inside an incorporated piece of property with the addition of private properties inside the incorporated property.
And we're at the bottom.
We're
at the bottom.
Really?
Yes.
Let's see. That is the bottom?
Yes.
Hey guys, we've made it through. Let me make sure I haven't missed any. Rick said last night about substantial expenses. Okay. I think we made it to the bottom. Brian Eagle says 0. I think that means that.
Dagmar says, Toby, I know you'll say you wouldn't partner with anyone else, but if someone could prove they had the correct solve, would you reconsider?
My position on the matter is if you have the correct solve, go get yourself that treasure.
Yeah.
If you have the correct solve, drop everything you're doing right now, including talking to me, and go get that treasure. Yes.
Brian Eagle wants to give us $5 for some
sounds.
Brian,
thank you. You're one of our hardworking moderators. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
That's right.
Oh, Los Pinos Ranch. Sorry. I thought you were talking about the stream. No, I haven't been to your ranch, Paul. I'm sorry. But I'm always open to invitations to ranches that are on trout fishing waters. So, okay, that looks like it. Let's. So we're done with Q&A for the day. Thank you all for your questions. Let me see if I can give you a wrap up. Wait. What? Okay. Now you can do
Yes.
Yes.
This thumbs up.
Could you give me a wrap up, please?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let me think about it. Okay, so everybody take this opportunity to give us a thumbs up, as they say, the young kids are saying it. Smash that like button. That's the young kids. Us old people don't know about young kids and stuff. So like the button, like the video. Share the video with your social networks and your family and friends, and the last one is subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications. And then you'll know whenever we're going live or put up a new video.
Or when we put up another video. So
What's
the only
happening
thing,
the rest of the week?
the only thing we have is tomorrow's Just the Facts question.
Oh, yes, we do. We better make that one. I better come up with a question.
I was going to say, I could tell that's what I was getting.
Whoopsie,
There wasn't.
Forgot about that.
You didn't get your question, did you?
I'll think of one. Does anybody
I
have
don't
a
want to have
question?
to take down this equipment
Toby?
without doing a question. Okay, here, let's do this. So let me go back to the chat for just a sec. So we do a frequently asked question every week where Shelley asks me a question that we get pretty often. So before we sign off, and
if you moderators out there
See
can
the-
think of a question that
see the-
we're asked a lot.
see the look on her face, that means she didn't come up with a question this week. So
I was busy.
here's your chance as a member of the chat to say, Here's the question I see that is frequently asked of you guys that needs a consistent answer. Make this video for tomorrow. Okay?
Yeah.
So put down your question.
Save Shelley's bacon.
Save the bacon. Okay. So put down that question. Put down the frequently asked question for tomorrow. And if we select it, Shelley will mention your name. How's that? How cool is that?
I will.
Okay.
I'll do that.
So thank you to our moderators for supporting us in the way that you do on every one of these shows. Thank you to those folks that gave us a super chat donation. We use that money productively to keep the show going and to buy new equipment, hopefully a camera that is not out of focus on my side.
Camera loves me, but not you.
Yeah, apparently. And so we appreciate that. And then, of course, thanks to all of you. Oh, can we tell them our idea just to see what they think about it?
Yeah. Why not?
Okay, so Shelley and I...
I'm pretty sure we're going to do it.
This is a heck of a way to end a show. So Shelley and I, we have a tool.
We had an epiphany.
So if you guys watch our Wednesday night programming where we have a panel, in order to do that, I use a tool called zoom.us. Go there, you can take a look at it. Download the desktop app. So here's what we're thinking about doing. I can put 100 people simultaneously into a zoom.us room. And we were thinking about doing something that Shelley called...
It's called AGK's Fantastic Fan Appreciation Day.
All right. And so what we're thinking about doing is, in order to do this, I need your email, okay? Because I need to send you an invitation via email to that particular chat room, okay? I mean, not that chat room, that Zoom US screen. So what we were thinking about doing is picking a day and a time, say a couple of weeks off into the future, and have a bunch of you who might be interested in doing this download Zoom, get your headsets, and I'll have to make a video on all the things. You've got to have a headset with a microphone. You have to have a webcam, either independent or on your laptop, and you have to have a high-speed internet connection, and you have to download the Zoom app. You have to.
If you've ever done teleconferencing, you know how to do all this.
It's all of this. So. And then what we do on that day is we would open up the Zoom room, send invitations to 98 other people, and have a room in which there are a bunch of other Fenn treasure searchers. And everybody would get 60 seconds to A, introduce themselves, B, promote whatever online assets they have, and introduce yourself like, my name is Toby Eunice, I'm from New Mexico, and I've been searching for the treasure for 60 seconds. Whatever you can get out in 60 seconds.
Searching for the treasure for 60 seconds.
60 seconds. And just go down the line until we've done all 100 people. Now, it would have to go really, really quickly, and I would manage it by using the mute button, just unmuting one person at a time as we went down, taking the time. We're thinking about doing this. Doing it in Zoom. Zoom actually records the video of all of that, and then after it's all done, posting the video to our YouTube channel. So in addition to giving Shelley her question for frequently asked questions this week, just put a comment either here or in the comments below once this video is processed, and tell us what you think of that idea, and maybe whether or not you'd actually want to participate in it. We just want to see how many Fenn searchers, fanatics. I don't want to use fanatics.
Fantastic fans.
Okay, fantastic fans. We can't use fanatics. That's a Bill Gorman brand.
Oh, no, we don't want to do that.
I just want to see whether or not there's some potential here. And if it works well the first time, we might do it like once a quarter or something like that. And eventually you'd have a pantheon, if you will, of Fenn searchers on video all saying, hi, my name is
right.
Richard McDonald. I'm from Illinois. I've gone out 108 times, and I think the treasure's in New Mexico. 60 seconds, whatever.
And if you'd say something nice about Forrest, he might even watch the video when it's done.
Good idea. Yeah, we could also say, and I really think Forrest Fenn is a good guy.
Yeah.
And it has to be positive.
And I had a great time on my treasure hunting, and thank you, Forrest. Something like that.
Yeah.
I think he'd like that.
Anyway, think about it. Make some comments about it. We're thinking about doing it. We think it'll be a lot of fun. Okay, let's wrap it up.
All right. What do we do now?
we say goodbye.
We'll be on tomorrow. We'll be back Tuesday. And Toby will come up with a lineup on what, Monday?
Sunday or Monday.
Sunday or Monday. So look
So
for
look
that.
for the lineup. We've got a full week planned for next week, including a panel, and our guest is going to be X Sarbin.
Yeah. And thanks for being here today, for all your great questions and comments. We appreciate you. And for A Gypsy's Kiss, the book club, I'm Shelley Carney.
And I'm Toby Pinos. Thanks for watching. We will see you sometime early next week. And here's the outro that everybody likes.